The first and most undeniable sign that the avoidant can no longer pretend they don't care is the moment their emotional mask begins to crack in ways they never intended. Avoidants build their entire identity around emotional control. They pride themselves on staying detached, unbothered, calm, and self-contained. They rehearse distance. They perform indifference. They tell themselves they don't need anyone, they don't depend on anyone, and they don't care deeply enough for anyone to hurt them. But when your absence begins to echo inside them louder than your presence ever did, their mask slips, not because they choose to let it slip, but because the truth inside them becomes too heavy to hold back. It starts with the smallest shift, something so subtle they don't even notice it at first. They find themselves thinking about you at random moments of the day. They remember something you said. They replay a conversation. They scroll past something that reminds them of you and feel a sudden tug they can't explain. Their mind drifts to you when they're busy, when they're supposed to be focused, or when they're trying to act unaffected. And every time their mind goes back to you, something inside them grows louder. The quiet truth that they cared more than they allowed themselves to feel. Avoidants fall into the habit of emotional compartmentalization. They place feelings in boxes, seal the boxes, stack them neatly, and pretend the boxes don't exist. But when you pulled away, when you stopped chasing, when you stopped over-giving, you disrupted their whole emotional filing system. The boxes started rattling. The compartments started leaking. The emotions they hid away began resurfacing without permission. And this internal disruption is where the mask begins breaking. Their calm starts turning into restlessness. Their distance starts turning into hyper-awareness. They notice when you're online. They notice when you don't respond. They notice when your energy feels different. They notice how long it's been since you reached out. Their mind, which once ignored these things, now reacts instantly. And this internal reaction is the first sign they can't pretend any longer. You don't trigger them. The thought of losing you does. Avoidants convince themselves that detachment is strength, that caring is weakness, that needing someone is dangerous. But the moment they realize they might lose someone who saw through their walls without judging them, someone who understood them without pressuring them, someone who matched them emotionally without smothering them, their narrative shifts. The idea that you are slipping away cracks the armor they've spent years maintaining. They start feeling emotions in their body before they feel them in their mind. Their chest tightens when they think of you. They replay moments they wish they handled better. They feel guilt even if they don't label it as guilt. They feel concern even if they clothe it in excuses. They feel longing even if they disguise it as curiosity. The emotion becomes undeniable, and the mask, the one built on decades of emotional survival, begins crumbling under the weight of what they refuse to confront. They may try to rebuild the mask. They may act colder. They may go silent. They may pretend they don't care. But every attempt to restore the mask feels forced, unnatural, exhausting. That's because once an avoidant feels something real, the truth creates cracks that don't disappear. Their silence no longer feels like strength, it feels like conflict. Their distance no longer feels like protection, it feels like loss. Their avoidance no longer feels comfortable, it feels like fear. And that fear is the moment their mask breaks completely. The fear that you're not waiting anymore. The fear that your life moved on without them. The fear that someone else might see your value the way they did, but were too afraid to admit. The fear that you no longer need them. The fear that they misplayed their cards and pushed away the one person whose presence made their world feel softer, safer, quieter. Avoidants don't crumble when you give too much. They crumble when you stop. Because stopping reveals the truth they've buried. They cared, they care, and they can't pretend otherwise. When they start feeling these emotions without being able to numb them, the mask they've worn for so long begins to crack open for the first time. And once the truth leaks out, they can never go back to pretending the connection didn't matter. The moment your energy shifts is the moment everything inside the avoidant starts to unravel. Avoidants don't react when you cry, when you explain your pain, or when you overgive. They don't budge when you try to pull them closer. They don't soften when you chase them. Their defenses are designed to withstand emotional pressure, but they are not designed to withstand emotional silences. And when your energy shifts, when you finally stop pouring, stop chasing, stop offering endless understanding, the avoidant feels something they never expected, the unsettling fear that they have lost the emotional control they always depended on. Avoidants thrive on emotional predictability. They need to know that no matter how far they pull away, you will still be there, open, waiting, available. The moment that predictability disappears, their internal sense of safety collapses. They start noticing your shifts immediately. not because they are emotionally intelligent, but because they are emotionally alert to any change that threatens their defenses. Your silence is not just silence to them, it's a signal. Your calm is not just calm, it's a disruption. Your distance is not just distance, it's a mirror showing them exactly what they pushed away. They feel this shift before they understand it. When you used to respond quickly, and now you respond slowly, something inside them tightens. When you used to ask how they were and now you stay quiet, they feel an absence they didn't anticipate. When you used to accommodate their emotional limitations, and now you prioritize yourself, they feel destabilized. They don't show this outwardly. Avoidants never show it first. But their mind starts looping around the same question: what changed? They check your social media more often than they admit. They hover over your name longer. They open your message thread and stare at the silence. They replay old conversations trying to figure out where the shift began. They study your tone, your presence, your newfound calm. They notice how your energy no longer reaches for them, and they feel the gap, even if they don't know how to name the emotion behind it. Avoidants are not afraid of closeness. They are afraid of losing autonomy within closeness. But when your energy shifts, they feel a different fear, the fear of losing you. And this is a fear they're not emotionally equipped to handle. They used to rely on your emotional stability to keep the connection alive. They used to rely on your softness to soothe their avoidance. They used to rely on your effort to fill the gaps their fear created. Now, when you pull that energy back into yourself, they don't have anything to hide behind. For the first time, they see the connection without your contribution propping it up, and that clarity terrifies them. Your new calm is the most powerful thing you've ever shown them. Not anger, not confrontation, not emotional outburst. Calm. Calm that comes from knowing you don't need them to feel whole. Calm that comes from choosing yourself. Calm that comes from inner strength, not emotional dependency. This calm shakes them because it is unfamiliar. They've never seen you this grounded, this self-contained, this emotionally independent. Your calm communicates a message without a single word: I'm not waiting anymore. Avoidants panic when they sense emotional independence, not because they wanted to control you, but because it disrupts their entire relationship template. Their fear of intimacy was always balanced by the comfort of knowing you cared more. Now the scale has shifted. Your energy no longer feeds their ego. Your silence no longer strokes their emotional safety. Your presence no longer bends around their wounds. They feel the loss before they acknowledge it. They feel the longing before they name it. They feel the pull before they understand it. They feel your absence inside their body, a physical tightness, a mental restlessness, a subtle anxiety they can't shake. And this discomfort marks the beginning of their emotional awakening. The more grounded you become, the more unsteady they feel. The more peaceful you become, the more chaotic their internal world becomes. Your shift forces them to see the truth they've avoided. You were the emotional anchor all along. They were not the strong one. You were. And now that you've stopped carrying the emotional weight, the avoidant is forced to confront their own feelings without your energy cushioning them. Their fear of losing control turns into the fear of losing someone who mattered far more than their ego ever admitted. Your new energy doesn't just wake them up. It exposes the truth they've spent their life running from. They care, and they can't pretend anymore. The third undeniable sign that an avoidant can't pretend anymore is the moment their behavior starts contradicting everything they said, everything they projected, and everything they once believed about themselves. Avoidants survive by convincing themselves that they are unaffected. It's not just a defense mechanism, it's a core part of their identity. They tell themselves they don't need anyone. They tell themselves emotions are dangerous. They tell themselves they're better alone. But when your absence hits them harder than they expected, when the silence becomes louder than the connection ever was, their actions begin revealing a truth their ego can no longer hide. It starts with inconsistencies, subtle at first. They said they needed space, but now they're watching your online activity. They said they weren't ready for closeness, but now they feel uneasy when you don't reply. They claim they don't care about relationships, but their mind keeps circling back to you. These contradictions are not accidents, they are emotional signals. The same avoidant who once acted distant becomes alert. The same person who claimed indifference becomes sensitive to your presence or lack of presence. Their pattern breaks, and in that break, the truth leaks out. Avoidants don't show their care in obvious ways. They show it in the ways they struggle to hide. You'll notice their reactions don't match their words. They might tell you they're fine, but their tone has a vulnerability you've never heard before. They might pretend the silence doesn't bother them, but their responses suddenly become quicker, more attentive, softer. They might act detached, yet they remember tiny details from months ago. They might avoid deep conversations, yet they ask questions that reveal concern, curiosity, and a desire to reconnect. Their contradictions intensify the moment they feel they no longer have emotional access to you. This is when the avoidance inner conflict becomes visible. Before, they could walk away easily because your energy followed them. Now, when you stand still, when you don't chase, don't explain, don't fix things for them, their emotional equilibrium shatters. They can't rely on the old dynamic anymore. They can't lean on the comfort of knowing you'll always be there. Their fear of intimacy transforms into fear of loss, and this transformation creates behaviors they can't keep consistent. They stop being able to maintain the mask of detachment. Their eyes soften when they see you. Their body leans in without permission. Their voice lowers into warmth when talking to you. They give you attention in moments they would normally withdraw. They check on you randomly. They try to create small interactions, even if disguised as something casual or insignificant. Those small efforts are not small at all for an avoidant. They are monumental. They are cracks in their emotional armor. The biggest contradiction reveals itself in their sudden protectiveness. Avoidants spend years telling themselves they don't care enough to fight for anyone. But when you step back, something triggers within them. A primal instinct to guard what they fear losing. They might ask if you're okay more often. They might react when someone else shows interest in you. They might subtly insert themselves back into your life. Their jealousy becomes noticeable. Their tone shifts, their attention sharpens. These behaviors are not random. They are driven by the avoidant's internal realization that they have feelings, real feelings, feelings that are now threatened by your emotional distance. The more they try to act unaffected, the more their behavior betrays them. You'll see them initiate conversations even when they swear they hate texting. You'll see them try to make you laugh, even though they claim to dislike emotional intimacy. You'll see them show up at moments where they think they can, accidentally, run into you. You'll see them take interest in your well-being, your life, your energy, interest they never displayed before. These contradictions are the avoidant's emotional confession, spoken through actions they can't control. Avoidants don't say, "I care." They behave differently when they do. Avoidants don't say, "I miss you." They show up in small ways hoping you'll notice. Avoidants don't say, "I'm terrified of losing you." They react instantly when they feel you slipping away. They don't have the emotional vocabulary to articulate their feelings directly. Their ego blocks them from expressing vulnerability. But their behavior cracks the truth open, piece by piece, moment by moment. And when those contradictions begin stacking, when their actions consistently point toward connection while their ego tries to deny it, that is the moment the avoidant can no longer pretend. Their behavior becomes the evidence of their emotions. Their contradictions become the proof of their attachment. Their unplanned reactions become the truth their defenses failed to hide. When their words and actions no longer align, when their calm shifts into restlessness, when their detachment melts into subtle pursuit, you are witnessing the exact moment an avoidant's heart begins to override their ego. And from that moment on, they can never go back to pretending the connection didn't matter. Not to you, and not to themselves. One of the clearest signs an avoidant can no longer pretend they don't care is when they begin showing their emotions through indirect, accidental, and unguarded expressions, the kinds of expressions they never meant for you to see. Avoidants are experts at emotional camouflage. They know how to look unbothered. They know how to speak in neutral tones. They know how to create distance without appearing cruel. They know how to perform indifference so convincingly that even they believe it. But when their feelings grow stronger than their defenses, emotions start leaking through the cracks. And these leaks are powerful because avoidants aren't used to losing control of their emotional presentation. It usually starts with a shift in how they respond to you. The avoidant who once replied slowly now replies faster without meaning to. The person who claimed to dislike texting may suddenly send messages that feel warmer, more thoughtful, or more vulnerable. Their tone changes. Their words soften. They ask more personal questions. They show a level of curiosity they never showed before. These changes are not conscious decisions. They are emotional reflexes. This is what happens when their truth escapes before their ego can stop it. You'll catch them staring at you more than they should. They'll look away quickly if you catch them. Embarrassed that they let their guard down, you'll feel the tension in the air. Not negative tension, but emotional tension. A pull, a longing, a yearning wrapped inside restraint. The kind of energy that says, "I want to be close, but I don't know how." They won't say it with words, but their eyes will reveal everything. Avoidants are not good at direct emotional expression. They rarely say what they feel. But when they can't pretend anymore, they begin expressing themselves in small, unintentional actions. They might compliment you in a way they never did before. They might check in on you randomly. They might offer help without being asked. They might remember details you shared months ago. These gestures are not random. They are emotional leaks, signs that their heart is showing up even while their mind tries to shut it down. Their body exposes them too. They lean in when you speak. Their posture softens around you. Their voice gets quieter, more intimate. Their face lights up when you enter the room, then they try to hide it. They stand closer to you than before, sometimes even unconsciously. Avoidants reveal attraction physically long before they reveal it verbally. Their body betrays the attachment their ego refuses to admit. And then there are the emotional slips, the brief moments where they show vulnerability they didn't prepare for. They might say something reflective, something honest, something unexpectedly soft. They might share something personal without thinking. They might show a glimpse of insecurity. They might express concern for your well-being with more emotion than they intended. These slips come out quickly and disappear just as fast, followed by an awkward attempt to act normal again. But emotional slips are the strongest evidence that the avoidant's interior defenses are breaking. Another powerful sign is their discomfort when you distance yourself. Before, your feelings didn't affect them because they felt safe in your consistency. But now your silence bothers them. Your neutrality confuses them. Your independence unsettles them. They become visibly affected when they sense you pulling away even a little. You'll see irritation, jealousy, anxiety, or restlessness. Emotions they never showed before. These reactions spill out because they no longer have the emotional strength to contain them. Avoidants don't explode emotionally like anxious individuals do. Their emotions seep out quietly, subtly, but unmistakably once you know how to recognize them. They start initiating contact more than usual. They ask follow-up questions. They try to reconnect in small ways. They linger in conversations longer. Their avoidance behaviors weaken because their emotional attachment strengthens. And no matter how hard they try to act unaffected, something inside them refuses to stay silent. Their emotional leaks are also a form of testing. Avoidants test the safety of vulnerability in micro-doses. They offer a tiny piece of their heart and watch how you respond. If you respond calmly, with warmth but without pressure, their guard lowers an inch. If you respond with desperation or clinginess, their guard rises instantly. Their emotional leaks are a bridge between fear and desire, a cautious attempt to approach intimacy without drowning in it. When an avoidant begins leaking emotions, it means their internal conflict has reached its limit. Their fear of closeness is still there, but their fear of losing you has become stronger. Their ego is still trying to hold on to the facade, but their heart is pushing through anyway. Their mind says, "Don't get attached," but their body and actions say, "You already are." These emotional leaks reveal a truth they've spent their whole life running from. They care, deeply, painfully, reluctantly, and they no longer have the capacity to hide it. One of the strongest signs an avoidant can no longer pretend they don't care is when they begin reacting to your emotional independence in ways they never did before. Avoidants are comfortable only when they feel emotionally superior, when they believe you need them more than they need you. Their ego depends on that imbalance because it protects them from vulnerability. But when you shift out of emotional dependence and into your own power, the avoidant's internal world begins to shake. Your independence triggers a fear they've spent their entire life avoiding, the fear of losing someone they actually care about. And that fear forces them to show signs of concern, attention, and attachment they never showed when they believed you were emotionally safe to take for granted. You'll notice this shift most clearly in the way they become unexpectedly attentive. The same avoidant who once ignored details suddenly remembers them. The person who once seemed uninterested in your feelings suddenly becomes hyper-aware of your emotional shifts. If your tone is slightly different, they notice. If your energy is slightly distant, they feel it. If you seem too calm, too peaceful, too detached, they react internally even if their face stays neutral. Avoidants don't respond to closeness. They respond to change. And your newfound independence is the biggest emotional change they've ever felt from you. Now their reactions begin spilling out in small but unmistakable ways. They start asking questions that reveal where their mind is really focused. They ask if you're okay. They ask if something is wrong. They ask how life is going. These questions are not small talk. They are emotional check-ins. They want to understand your emotional temperature because they no longer feel in control of the connection. They're no longer sure where they stand with you, and that uncertainty makes them pay attention in ways they never did before. Their insecurity starts to creep out as well. They may not admit it, but it shows in their behavior. They get uneasy when you're quiet. They get tense when you're distant. They get jealous when they think someone else might be giving you attention. They become unexpectedly sensitive to how you respond to them. If you're friendly, they soften. If you're neutral, they become confused. If you're distant, they feel a sudden urgency they don't understand. These emotional fluctuations are the clearest sign that your independence has reached them on a level their defenses can't suppress. When an avoidant begins caring, truly caring, it never looks like a grand confession. It looks like subtle protection. They start checking on you more. They offer help when you didn't ask for it. They give advice. They show interest in your problems. They worry quietly. They try to take care of small things. These actions are not random kindness. They are emotional investment leaking through the cracks. They don't know how to say, "I care about you," so they show it in their behavior. Their protectiveness becomes especially visible when they fear losing emotional access to you. They might ask who you've been spending time with. They might react differently when you mention another person. They might try to assert their presence in your life in subtle ways, commenting, reaching out, initiating, appearing in places they know you'll be. They won't admit it, but their heart is moving faster than their ego can manage. Another powerful sign is their shift in emotional tone. They begin speaking to you more gently, more carefully, more deliberately. They're afraid of pushing you away again. They're afraid of saying the wrong thing. They're afraid of repeating old patterns. Their voice gets softer. Their words get more thoughtful. Their communication becomes more intentional. The avoidant who once seemed emotionally clumsy now tries, really tries, to show care without overwhelming themselves. But the deepest sign of all is the anxiety they feel when they sense you might have moved on emotionally. Avoidants don't fear closeness. They fear needing someone who stops needing them. When they realize your emotional energy is no longer tied to them, they feel a loss that hits them in their chest. That loss forces them to confront emotions they thought they buried. They begin to understand that the connection was not as disposable as they pretended. They begin to see that you were never the weak one. You were the anchor. You were the emotional center. You were the stable presence they thought they could always return to. And now, as your independence grows, they feel the weight of their past avoidance. They feel regret for the distance they created. They feel fear of losing the chance to reconnect. They feel admiration for your strength. They feel drawn to you in a way they can't rationalize. This is when the avoidant stops pretending. Their ego can't protect them anymore. Their reactions, their concern, their sudden attention, all of it reveals the truth they never wanted to face. And in that truth, their heart is louder than their fear for the first time. The moment an avoidant realizes you're no longer feeding their ego is the moment they're forced to face a truth they've run from their entire life. The truth that they never stopped caring, they just stopped allowing themselves to feel. Avoidants don't need you to love them harder. They need you to stop giving them the emotional safety they abused without even realizing it. When you no longer reassure them, no longer chase, no longer initiate, no longer soften their fears for them, their entire emotional world flips upside down. For the first time, they are confronted with the reality of the connection without the cushion of your effort. And in that moment, they can no longer pretend, because the feeling of losing you becomes louder than the fear of getting close. Avoidants depend on emotional safety, but not in the way people think. They don't feel safe when you're close. They feel safe when they believe you will always be there even if they choose distance. They fear vulnerability, but they rely on your vulnerability. They fear intimacy, but they rely on your availability. They fear connection, but they rely on your emotional consistency. When that consistency disappears, even gently, even naturally, their ego no longer has anything to anchor itself to. Suddenly, they are the one who feels unstable. They are the one who feels uncertain. They are the one who feels emotionally exposed. This exposure is not dramatic, it's not loud. It's quiet, internal, and deeply unsettling for them. They feel something tightening in their chest when they think about you. They feel unrest when they go hours without hearing from you. They feel anxious when they sense your attention is elsewhere. They feel threatened when they can't predict your emotional response. These feelings used to be unbearable for them, but now they're unavoidable. Your silence wakes them up in a way your love never could, and the awakening forces them to confront who they are without the protection of distance. Without you soothing their fears, they have to face their own patterns. Without you filling the emotional space, they have to acknowledge how empty it feels without you. Without you managing the connection, they have to decide whether they want to show up for it or lose it entirely. This internal pressure becomes the emotional tipping point, the moment they can no longer pretend they don't care. You'll notice they begin showing vulnerability in ways they never did before. They may not admit their feelings directly, but their behavior softens, their tone changes, their presence becomes more intentional, they initiate more, they ask more personal questions, they react faster. They try to create connection without appearing desperate. Their ego is fighting to maintain control, but their heart is forcing its way forward. Avoidants are terrified of needing someone, but they are even more terrified of losing someone who made them feel safe without demanding they become someone else. When you stop feeding their ego, you show them something they never expected: you loved them, but you loved yourself too. And this combination is what avoidants fall for. Not weakness, not chasing, not emotional overexposure, but strength mixed with softness. Your emotional strength forces them to rise. Your silence forces them to step forward. Your boundaries force them to reflect. Your independence forces them to choose. And this choice terrifies them because for the first time, they are the one who has something to lose. They begin imagining life without you, and it scares them. They begin noticing how different their days feel without your presence. They begin wondering if someone else has your attention now. They begin feeling uneasy at the thought of someone else appreciating your value. These thoughts are not ego-based anymore. They are emotionally driven. They miss your energy, your softness, your understanding. They miss the emotional space you held for them. And they realize that losing that space means losing someone who saw them through layers they don't show to the world. Avoidants don't chase lightly. They don't open easily. They don't admit feelings quickly. But when your lack of ego feeding forces them into emotional accountability, they shift in a way you never expected. Their pride softens, their walls thin. Their fear becomes secondary to the possibility of losing you. And that's the moment they begin to show care without hiding it. They reach out. They check on you. They try to reconnect. They try to keep the door open. Not because they suddenly became secure, but because they can no longer pretend the connection meant nothing. This is the moment they stop acting detached and start acting invested. Because your self-respect didn't just protect your heart, it revealed theirs. And once that truth emerges, they can't bury it again. They can't unfeel it. They can't unsee it. They can't pretend the connection was meaningless, because your silence exposed everything they fought to hide. Their ego doesn't collapse because you needed too much. It collapses because you finally needed nothing. And in that quiet, powerful shift, they discover what they never wanted to admit: they care more than their fear, and they can't pretend otherwise anymore.